My name's Tom Gordon at Fraunhofer Focus. I'm the coordinator of the MARKOS project and responsible for the license analyzer component, which is going to be the focus of my talk today. I first wanted to just briefly introduce the MARKOS project as a whole before I delve into the license analyzer component. The project started in October 2012 and runs for 2.5 years until March 2015. It's a R&D project, a STREP project. The technical coordination is an Italian company, engineering, in particular Francesco Torelli. You can see the list of partners here. I noticed that Etergia is a partner in both of the projects you're talking about today, both in MARKOS and in PROSE. We have partners from several European companies and countries, including Poland and Italy and Germany. Hope I'm not forgetting another country. So the goal is to develop a platform and a server that can be used to create a service called the MARKOS software, which will enable better reuse of open source software, going beyond tools that currently exist. Of course, it's a research project, so we're trying to make it easier for developers to find open source software that they can reuse by creating, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, a semantic model of code available out in open source repositories. So the search is done at a semantic level, not at just a full text search for software. Because of this semantic analysis, we also will provide, or do provide, tools to help you to browse and analyze the structure of the software. For example, inheritance hierarchies of classes, or whether one piece of software is a part of another software, or links to a library, or is a fork of another project, or implements an API, for example. And last but not least, we provide tools to help you to check whether your licenses are compatible with the licenses of the software which your code is using, and to help you to understand why it is compatible or not compatible, and so that you can know what you have to do to resolve any legal issues you might have. So compared to the state of the art, here we see that integrated development environments, IDEs, do provide some support for browsing code at a semantic level, but typically you have to download all the code into your IDE that you want to use, and it may be only support a particular language or a small number of languages. It's not language independent. And we also have forges like SourceForge or GitHub. They provide full text search, so there is some indexing and support for some search, but it's not at a semantic level. It doesn't. These systems don't typically provide support for analyzing licensing issues, and they don't provide any support for analyzing dependencies across projects. So these are all problems with the state of the art that we are trying to resolve in the MARKOS project. So the vision is to provide a software which is itself open source. The MARKOS system is itself open source software. Anyone can use it to create a MARKOS service. We're developing business scenarios in the project and exploitation plans, of course. I'm not in a position right now to say anything about those, but anybody in principle could build a business using the MARKOS software. The main problem with these business scenarios is to try to find a model which will enable the system to be sustainable and develop further, and to interest people in actually taking the step of providing the MARKOS system as a service for developers. It will support multiple programming languages. I was almost going to say programming language independent. That's not the case. We need to develop software plugins for the MARKOS system for each programming language. At the moment, we are supporting Java, and work is going on at supporting JavaScript. And it's extensible for supporting other programming languages and repositories. But work would need to be done to support other languages. We offer two kinds of interfaces to the services of the system. One for programs using a linked data and a Sparkle API. If you don't understand these technical terms, I'm sorry, but I don't really have time now to go into detail. And there is a code analyzer which is able to, using heuristics, to derive dependency information between components and between projects, across projects and across forges. And again, this tool that MARKOS provides developers with support for identifying, analyzing, and understanding legal issues. And there's also a notification service so you can keep informed of changes going on to projects across forges. Here is the latest system architecture diagram. Keep in mind that everything I'm showing you is subject to change. We're right in the middle of the project. We're not finished. There's work going on, and things will evolve during the course of the project further to some extent. So let me start at the bottom of this diagram. There you see in the gray box, I guess I have a pointer. These are outside the MARKOS system. Those are the projects, the source code on the various source forges, like GitHub or SourceForge. And then there's a component called a crawler, which goes out and crawls the sources on these different forges to search for data and metadata about the projects, this data is then further processed by the code analyzer component, where we have these heuristics and rules for identifying properties of projects, including what licenses are being applied, but also relationships between components and projects, for example, whether the system is being linked to some library, for example. And here you see the code factor extractor. This is the part where you need to plug in specific modules or components to extract information from projects which use different programming languages like Java or JavaScript. Here on the right you see the license assistant. It has two components, a license analyzer, which is what I'll mostly be talking about today, but there's a second part of this, the license checker. This is actually implemented as an integral part of the code analysis phase. It does a quick and dirty analysis using some simple heuristics to try to identify whether there might be a licensing issue or not. All of this information gets stored in a database of a particular kind. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the semantic web. This is not a relational database, but a triple store, so every fact in the database has the structure of a subject-object-predicate, or subject-predicate-object. And then here at the top you see we have a graphical user interface for users, for human users. There's a notification service which sends notifications by email, and then here's the linked data access point for allowing external applications to be developed which access the information in the repository. Okay. So now let's say the impact that we're trying to achieve in the project is to reduce the costs of developing open source software, to improve collaboration among software developers, to accelerate the development of innovative solutions, to simplify the adoption of open source software, at the same time helping people to protect their intellectual property rights, their copyrights, and reduce the risk of copyright violations on the other side. So now I'm moving over to the focus of the talk. I'm hoping I'm not running out of time. The license analyzer like I said, the license assistant is the entire system has two parts: a license checker and a license analyzer. The license checker is fully automatic, but it uses heuristics and it can make errors. Okay, so if you want to do a more in-depth analysis, you use our license analyzer. This is an interactive tool. It's not fully automatic. It has automatic parts, but it's intended to be used by a developer, perhaps also with the help of a lawyer, to do more in-depth legal analysis of licensing issues. It uses a knowledge base consisting of terminology or an ontology using the ontology web language, OWL, and a rule base. The rules are written in a language of our own design, and these rules and knowledge and concepts of the knowledge base is applied to the facts of a particular case, for example, a particular software project, to then construct arguments automatically, both for and against particular claims, like whether whether the licenses are compatible or not. So you get arguments on both sides of the issue. The facts are from two sources. One is they're retrieved from the repository, but these facts can be incorrect because the crawler and the codal analyzer use heuristics, and so you might need to correct those facts. There's a dialogue component where users are asked questions to enter facts which could not be retrieved from the repository. Then the arguments which were constructed are evaluated in a formal sense using a computational model of argument, which then assigns to every claim a status of whether it's true or false, or we don't know. So it's kind of a three-valued logic. Again, this can all be incorrect because the facts could be incorrect that were used, or perhaps the model of copyright law is not adequate for your country, or because of some new court cases. There can be many things that can go wrong, and for this reason we have an interactive argument editor which allows a human to modify these arguments and to override the arguments that were constructed automatically with counter arguments or with exceptions or something like that. We also have something called a legal profile facility, which allows you to configure the knowledge base for different legal systems. For example, some countries might think that linking causes work to be a derivative work. If you link to a GPL library, maybe that's considered to cause your work to be derived from the GPL library, and where you are then obliged to also use the GPL. But in some other country, the law may be different. Maybe they'll say that linking is some kind of fair use, or does not cause the work to be a derivative work. So you can configure the knowledge base to make it match the law of your jurisdiction. And finally, I already mentioned you can edit the arguments, but you can also, it's a multi-user system on the web with a relational database backend, so more than one person can work on these arguments and share them with others on the web. Okay. Now I just want to give you a brief demonstration, not live unfortunately. Don't have the technical facility for that here. I hope you can see this. So this is what you see when you first go to the system. You can search up here. It's a little bit like Google for something. Here we've typed in the name of a project, online tour, but you can type in other things. You can, if you want to, you can click on the advanced search button and then have a wide variety of different attributes that you can choose among. For example, searching for projects that only use a particular license, or maybe you're only interested in libraries or only interested in components of a particular type. And here are some examples that you can click on to go to them immediately. So I look for this online tour example. And this is what you see. Then you can, on the left, you have a Content Explorer. You can actually unfold this and see the packages and classes and libraries and even the methods in the classes in a kind of like a class browser for the project. And but here I'm clicking on a particular release, Online Tour 101, and on the right here we see the results of the license checker, which thinks that the license that is being used by the online tour Apache 2.0 and also GPL 3, so it has two licenses here, but it thinks that at least one of these licenses is not compliant with the licenses it is using from the components that it is based on. So here we have the two buttons for the Analyze Licenses button is the one I'm going to show you now, which allows you to then try to find out why the license is not compliant or to do a more in-depth analysis. The Find Compatible Licenses is another tool I'm not going to demonstrate today, but I want to mention it. It's maybe closest to the PROSE tool in a certain sense. It can help you to choose a license for your software. This will show you a list of licenses which are compatible with the licenses of the software used by this project. That would maybe a question for Amanda is whether the PROSE tool provides some support for checking whether a given license is compatible with the other licenses that the code is based on. So when you click on and go back to the Analyze Licenses, you then get this is the results of the automatic analysis. It's presented in different ways. Here is a kind of an argument graph saying this online tour 1.1 may be licensed using Apache or not. Here's an argument 1, which is in favor of this conclusion, and here's another argument 2, which is against this conclusion. And the red dot here says the automatic argument evaluation has reached the same conclusion as the license checker. It shows here it's red, no, you may not use Apache. If it were green, that would mean that you could use Apache, and if it were yellow, it would mean that we don't know. We can also take a look at this analysis in an argument graph. Here you can see the conclusion that Online Tour 1.1 may be licensed in Apache is red. We have the pro and con argument. The pro argument is red, meaning that it's out. It's not applicable right now. This says you can use the Apache license simply because by default you can use any license you want. But a con argument is you may not use this license since it's dependent on a component HTML Wolf 1.1, which is licensed using the GPL, and the GPL is a reciprocal license. Okay, so here's another representation of that argument. These are just different views onto the same argument graph. Here you see the argument is valid. It says, if the following were true, Apache is a licensed template, Online Tour 1.1 is derived from the HTML Wolf 1.1, HTML Wolf is licensed using the GPL, and the GPL is a reciprocal license, then presumably you may not license the Online Tour 1.1 with Apache. Okay. And this is a view of a particular statement. The one that we're interested in, the main issue, is Online Tour 1.1 derived from HTML Wolf. Well, it's not the main issue, but this is one issue. And there's an argument that it is, namely, this is the legal question: is one work derived from another? And the legal question is: does linking cause a work to be a derived work? And the Free Software Foundation thinks it does. So we have a rule here modeling the Free Software Foundation theory of linking, namely that linking does cause a work to be a derived work. All right? And this shows you that this statement is used as a premise of this argument here. So I'm coming to the end. Here are some technical details. I don't think I'm going to go through all of these now. You can download these slides if you want. This system is an application of a more general system. We're developing a platform called Carneades for making, for argumentation, for argumentation support in a wide variety of application scenarios, not just legal expert systems, but also for e-participation scenarios, for example, for reconstructing arguments in policy debates. Argument graphs are evaluating using a Dung argumentation framework with grounded semantics. I'm sorry if you don't know what that means. I don't expect you to. This is just some technical details. It's a Java. It's not written in Java. It's written in a functional programming language named Clojure, but it runs on the Java virtual machine. It's a 3-tier web application. It's very simple to install and to use, and it has a user interface which adjusts dynamically to the device. It can be used on desktops, tablets, or mobile phones. Okay, the current status is that the license checker and the license analyzer are working, including the dialog component, which asks for further information. I haven't shown you that today with this example. And argument browsing and visualization is finished. We're working at this moment on getting legal profiles to work, and the argument editor for modifying arguments. That used to work. We completely redid the user interfaces to use Twitter Bootstrap to make this adapt to the display, to the device, and now the argument editor needs to be ported to Twitter Bootstrap to get it working again. So that's something we're working on now. And between now and the end of the project in March, we need to do a lot of work on the copyright knowledge base. We have the basic framework is there, but there's still quite a bit of work to do, and of course we need to write the final documentation. So I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. I hope I didn't go too far over time. Here's a link to a demo. You can try this out for yourself. You will be among the first. I don't think it's really been published yet because it's still a little bit unstable and we don't have too many projects in the database yet. I was asked to tell you how many. Let me see if I can find. Currently we have 172 projects indexed, and most of them, or maybe all of them, are Java projects. And before we really announce this demo, we want to have order of magnitude more projects in the repository. But you're welcome to try it out, and we'd be grateful for any feedback you might want to give us. Okay, well, I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. And we have now reached the end of the webinar. And if you have any questions for Thomas, you can just take your feedback button where I'm applauding right now. It's in the left corner.
I can answer that, Alessandro. All of the MARKOS system is open source, but it's not on the Open Source Projects EU repository, but on SourceForge. It used to be on Berlioz, which was hosted by Fraunhofer Focus, but the Berlioz repository has closed down, and SourceForge was a partner in the project, now replaced by Bitergia. So there are historical reasons why we chose SourceForge. Well, one reason was that the SourceForge platform was compatible with the software we were using on Berlioz, so we were able to transfer our wiki and our issue tracker and everything over to SourceForge. I wasn't at that time the coordinator. I don't remember whether there was a discussion about hosting it on the Open Source Projects EU website. If that's your question, are you only concerned about whether it is available at all, or do you want to know whether it's available on this particular forge? Okay. Okay, you're welcome. I can't speak for PROSE. The question is, was it within the scope of either project to develop a standard license for software developed by the European research organizations? I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there is an open source license that was developed by the European Union called the European Public License, EUPL. In fact, I was using it for the license analyzer before the MARKOS project. In the MARKOS project, we decided to use the MPL version 2 license for the reason that it was a compromise between Apache and which is an academic license, a permissive license. There was dissent in the project, no agreement in the project about whether to have a permissive license like Apache or a reciprocal copyleft license like GPL. And there are some licenses which are in the middle between these two extremes, and the MPL is one of those weak copyleft licenses which we agreed to use. The OIPO is a copyleft license like the GPL, the EUPL license. But I don't know what you mean by standard license. To my knowledge, the European Union or the European Commission does not require the use of any particular license. They leave this up to the partners in the projects to decide.
To jump in here, also in the PROSE project, we also do not push for a standard license that covers all, and as I mentioned, we're not keen on creating unnecessary licenses. We do cover, as Tom mentioned, we cover also the UPL as well as other main licenses, which you can check in the documentation we provide. So you'll get an overview of all the main licenses and how you're able to do them and use them in your projects.
Thank you, Alfredo.